What's up guys, Billy here, and today we're going to continue our conversation about the never-ending FAA drone registration case. If you aren't sure what I'm talking about, I'll do my best to try and catch you up to speed. So as we know, when you purchased a drone and before you fly it in the United States, you need to go into the FAA website and fill out a registration form. You just had to give up some personal information, pay up $5, and then you were able to fly legally. And it didn't matter whether you were a hobbyist or a commercial pilot, it basically was for anyone who owned a drone. This all changed last week when the Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia decided that the FAA's drone registration rule violated Section 336 of the FAA Modernization and Reform Act of 2012. This prevents them from making rules or regulations regarding model aircraft. Now getting into some of the newer information, which some of you guys probably already have a good feel for from the title. A new bill proposed by the Senate would put drone regulations and drone rules into the hands of the state and local governments rather than the federal governments. The article that I will be referring to for the remainder of this video is from Fortune.com, and I'll put the link in the description if you guys are interested in checking out the full-length article. The first bit of text that I want to analyze reads this. The senators are pitching the Drone Federalism Act as a way for local governments, including Native American tribal authorities, to create drone rules specific to their regions without butting heads with the federal government. So this basically lays the ground for what this bill or act wants to do. Rather than turning to the federal government to pretty much make regulations for the entire country, they want to put it in the hands of the state and local governments to make their own rules and enforce them for local drone pilots. Next is a quote from Dianne Feinstein, who is the senator of California. She said, "State, local, and tribal governments have a legitimate interest in protecting public safety and privacy from the misuse of drones. This bill allows communities to create low-altitude speed limits, local no-drone zones, or rules that are appropriate to their own circumstances." Alright, so this is the point where I kind of took a step back and became resistant to this idea. At first, I was like, alright, state governments making up their own laws, I guess that can't be too bad. But after reading this quote, I started to realize all of the negative things about state and local governments pretty much coming up with their own rules. So first of all, she states something about no-fly zones, or no-drone zones, she calls it, which are basically no-fly zones. And all drone pilots are accustomed to that. Of course, we can't fly close to an airport, we can't fly around military bases, all of that stuff. And also she mentions altitude limits, which again, we are accustomed to in the United States. We can't fly over 400 feet, and I think that is very reasonable. I have no reason to be over 400 feet. I think that if I stay under 400 feet, I'm safe, I'm fine, and I can get all of the footage that I need. But then she starts talking about speed limitations, and as a drone pilot, I've never been limited to how fast I can fly my drone. And I feel like a lot of people already are kind of pushing back against the limitations that are in place, and I feel like with speed limitations, the backlash from the drone community would not be good. Now this final piece of text that I want to read to you guys is a little bit longer, but bear with me as again this will be the final one. Now it states, "The bill proposes that the FAA choose up to 10 state, local, and tribal governments to create pilot programs lasting 2 years, during which the governments would work closely with the agency to create their own individual drone rules. During these pilot programs, the FAA would provide technical assistance to the local governments, determine with the governments how to enforce the rules, and act as a middleman between the local governments and NASA, which is trying to create a national drone air traffic management system. After the 2-year pilot program, the FAA would submit to Congress a public report of the best practices about how the FAA and local governments would work together." So amongst the FAA pretty much being pushed out of the picture, it appears that they're going to be sticking around with some local governments coming up with laws, which I think is a good idea, as the FAA knows what they're talking about when it comes to flight. So look, as you guys may have been able to tell, I'm not very favorable of the state and local governments coming up with their own drone laws, and I have 3 good reasons why I stand by this. Number 1 is the difference of laws across state borders. This would be extremely annoying having to follow a whole different set of rules when jumping from state to state. It was so easy to know the countrywide rules on drones, but now with different limitations all across the country, it'll just turn into a huge mess. I myself like to fly in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, and New York a lot, as I'm relatively close to all of those states. Having to know 4 different set of rules will be quite annoying. Number 2. Areas with more drone accidents will see heavier limitations. For example, if you're in an area where drones make the news all the time for bad things, your state could see heavy restrictions on altitude, speed, and in general where you can fly. This would not be fair to the mass majority who are usually safe when they fly. The third reason I feel this way deals with how these state governments will actually come up with their flight restrictions. As we saw in Canada, government officials made up drone rules that they thought sounded good when they basically screwed everyone with a drone over. if we have the government officials here do the same thing, then our flying capabilities could be severely limited. So that's basically how I'm feeling right now. I know that governments are trying to step in to create these rules so that the people are safe and also the drone pilots have the freedom to do some flying. But I feel like at the end of the day, we are getting the short end of the stick. Now I want to leave this open to you guys down in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. I'll be down there lurking around responding to some of you. But of course, my opinion is not the only one that matters, and I would love to hear what you guys have to say. But guys, anyway, that about wraps up this video. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you are new around here, as I have been trying to upload daily. Also, don't forget to leave that comment, and as always, I'll talk to you later. Peace.